Hello everybody, and this is Larnen, GM of Conclave of Darkshire, and I thought it was time to do a voice recording rather than just typing endless forum posts to talk a little bit about Wildstar, what we want to do with it, and why we're quite excited about it, and to give you a flavour for those who've been playing the beta and those who haven't, why we think this could be a really good place for the guild going forward. Everybody who is ever likely to hear this knows who I am, but very quickly, I am Larnen. I've been running Conclave of Darkshire pretty much since day one, and as everyone will know, Conclave was originally a World of Warcraft guild, as indeed you can tell by the name. Some years ago, people started to lose interest in World of Warcraft. We kind of dispersed in different directions, and since then, really, we've kind of been looking for a home, a game that's really going to appeal to all the things that we used to love about WoW, and somewhere for us to get back together again. Now, Conclave was a very unusual guild. We were into doing hardcore progression raiding, but we did that without turning into one of those guilds of jerks that is really so common. You know, we never turned into the Onyxia wipe animation guys. But at the same time, we punched very much above our weight, given our relatively casual background. We never really kind of got the server firsts, but we got very close on a few occasions, and we were routinely in the server sort of top 5 to 10 raiding guilds. So, as time went on, I think a lot of us kind of decided that WoW was heading in a direction that wasn't really where we wanted. A lot of people stopped playing. A number of other people stopped, kind of drifted back, tried again, drifted away, dabbled with other games. You know, we looked at Guild Wars 2, beautiful looking game, but just no end game. To Star Wars, the Old Republic. And again, kind of interesting, but it just didn't really hook everybody in the way that WoW had done historically. And then came along Wildstar. So Wildstar is different, and one of the things that we really like about it is where it comes from. So a large number of the Wildstar developers were originally World of Warcraft devs back in the Burning Crusade days. Now, I think most people, certainly most people in Conclave, seem to concur that the glory days of WoW were Burning Crusade and Wrath of the Lich King. And which one of those you pick tends to depend on what your focus was. Wrath of the Lich King was technically a better game. I think we would generally agree with that. It was well put together, it was polished, there was a lot of content, there was a lot of flexibility. The downside was that the community had completely gone to hell. Things for like looking for group and cross-server, none of this really helped. Burning Crusade, on the other hand, was very hard, very hard by comparison. And I think a lot of us respected that. It was nice, to my view, to walk around town and see people wearing these sort of epic pieces of gear. I'm not going to refer back to the inevitable banana shoulders of vanilla for paladins, but pieces of gear that, you know what, I haven't got that, and I'm probably never going to get that, because that is elite. To get that, you've got to be the absolute best of the best. And I'm trying, and I'm doing my best, and I'm getting better, but you know what? Those guys, they're the creme de la creme. That went away in Wrath of the Lich King. In Wrath of the Lich King, Blizzard started to do their everybody wins mentality. And I understand why. As a publisher, you put all this time and money into content, you want your clients to see it. But I think that they kind of lost the plot of why MMOs and multiplayer games, back to the old mud days. One of the things that's really good about these is that there's always a mountain to climb. There's always a peak that is ahead of you. And seeing people standing on that peak, waving their banana shoulders, was inspiring. So I think when they made it so that everybody could win, I think they lost their way. And while I understand the reasons, I think that they lost something important out of the MMO genre. Wildstar devs, they come back from those days. They understand this. They understand that sometimes that you're going to be looking up at that mountain and going, "Phew, I'm never going to get there, but my God, I really respect the people who do." So I like that. So just very quickly back to Wildstar itself. So what are we doing? So we're going to be an Exiles guild. There was some degree of thought about this. It is true to say the Dominion are pretty cool. There's certainly there's a lot of people who want to play insane evil space bunnies. But on balance, Exiles seems to have it. I mean, let's be honest, you know, there's going to be an awful lot of people with mouse ears and big furry tails, and I'm probably going to be one of them. I don't think we're going to be entirely a guild full of furries. That gets a bit strange. But there's going to be a lot of tails wagging around in raids. But no, we're going to be Exiles. And in terms of server, we haven't decided yet. Obviously, we're in beta at the moment, so we've only got the North American servers. At the moment, by the way, if you have not been on the beta and you're able to do so this weekend, we're on the Elysia realm. so you can catch us there all weekend. Going forward, once we've seen what the live realms for Europe are, we'll make an announcement, we'll post it on the forums. Now, we need to make a few decisions about what we're doing as a guild. I'll come back to that later. But in terms of server, one of the things we have to decide is whether we want to go for a high population or a low population server. And there's pros and cons to each, right? If we go for a high population server, you're going to have a vibrant economy, there's going to be a lot of random people to bump into, but there's going to be a lot of people to bump into, right? And that cuts both ways. Particularly if we're interested in doing the sort of server progression chasing raiding that we have done in World of Warcraft. Having 200 other progression guilds running around at the same time is perhaps not helpful, whereas a lower population server perhaps gives us more opportunity to distinguish ourselves and demonstrate that we are some of the small percentage who are really good at this. So that's one thing we have to decide, and we'll think about that when we've got the European servers available. Now, a lot of people have expressed interest in Wildstar. I've been really pleased, actually, with a number of old Conclave of Darkshire people, those who play WoW still, those who've given up on games, all sorts of things, who have expressed some kind of interest in playing. I think we've got about 17 or 18, perhaps as many as 20, who've already kind of put their hand up and said, yes, I'm going to do this. So that's fantastic. Hopefully, more of those will pre-order, and we'll look to get the guild set up pretty much day one, if we can, on live, so that as soon as you're on, send us a message on the forum, or ping us in the game, and we'll get you added to the guild. But already we've got Dresden, we've got Denise, we've got Nubir, we've got Frog, all from the old guild. Rogazim has expressed an interest. I think Chandari was saying she might come and join, which is fantastic. In addition to that, we've got a whole bunch of new people who either I know from other games or used to play WoW, but on different servers. So, you know, we've got Lisa, we've got Joe, we've got Arana, got Tony, we've got a whole bunch of people. And we've got some really good players here, and one thing I love about Conclave, and I'm determined to keep, is that we've got a really great mix. Everybody in this guild is one of two things. They're either an absolutely excellent player, or they're the nicest person you've ever met. We don't really do anybody who doesn't fall into one of those categories. And what I particularly like about Conclave is that all of our real hardcore raiders, actually, they're all really nice as well. We just don't do the sort of guild where we have someone who's a dick, but we let it slide because, you know what, he's really good at punching monsters in the face. We don't do that. We've got a lovely bunch of people, and it just so happens that a large proportion of those happen to be excellent players as well. So I'm really happy that so many people from the guild on World of Warcraft, who all fall into this category, are popping up and showing interest in joining us on Wildstar. I am determined that the guild on Wildstar will have exactly the same ethic as it did on WoW. We're not going to be that guild full of idiots. We're going to be nice people. We're going to have people wanting to join us. We're not going to need to advertise. Conclave never advertised once in all its days on World of Warcraft, and we had a queue of people around the block who wanted to join us because they'd heard that, you know what, we have fun, we're nice, we don't chew each other up, and at the same time, we get up there and we take down the hardest monsters. So that's great, and I'm really hoping that there'll be more people from WoW who'll come and join us once they see that we've got that core, and once we're growing, once the guild is set up, and so I'm really looking forward to that. So, why are we so excited about Wildstar? Well, I've kind of covered already the bit about World of Warcraft losing its way a little bit in terms of the mountain to climb. Now, mountain to climb is often a negative expression, right? So I'm kind of conscious of using that term, but I think it's a really good way of putting it. It's not so much about the hard slog up the mountain, although to be fair, if you want to be really good at games like this, you have got to put in the time to practice. You've got to sort of hone your abilities, and I think we all understand that. But it's more the analogy of looking up the slope. That there's something up ahead that you can aspire to, and that you know you can get there. It's a matter of time if you put in the practice, if you're prepared to get good at what you do. World of Warcraft, it became more like a travelator at a airport. You step on it and eventually you'll get to the end, irrespective of what you do. No, don't like that. So Wildstar gets rid of that, and one of the ways it does it is by being hard. Now, if you've not been on the beta yet, you won't really appreciate this, and if you haven't looked at any of the videos, you won't really get this. But Wildstar is hard. Even leveling has its moments. Just last night, while we were all on Mumble, running around, mucking about and playing, you know, I jumped into an area that was a little bit too high level for me, and wow, I got eaten up. And I got chewed to pieces and beaten up, and I died loads and loads of time, and all my gear was nearly broken. But being me, I carried on doing it and eventually took down the big monster at the end solo, which was lovely. But it gave me that sense of achievement that has really kind of been missing from WoW. Back in the day, could go to Stromgarde. I can't remember my zones now. Where was that? Was that Arathi? Or was that Hildred? Arathi, I think. You could go to Stromgarde, and it was full of elite monsters, and it wasn't designed to be taken solo, but you could do it solo if you were good enough. Die a lot. A lot of time would be spent running, screaming, your health bar down to 3 or 4%, doing everything you can, every trick that you knew to stay alive. And then when you killed those monsters, that was really satisfying. Really satisfying. And my experience last night was like that. And you know, I haven't really felt that in a game for a very long time. And this was just something random I'd stumbled into. This wasn't a dungeon or anything specific. This wasn't a group quest. I just happened to bump into some monsters, thought I'd kill them, and found that they were really difficult. And I had to change my loadout, keep changing my skills, kill something, die, tweak something. Did it help? In a way that us hardcore raiders are used to, but that outside of real hard mode dungeons on WoW, which I think really have lost their luster, you're just not used to that in the leveling experience. So that was really good. So leveling can be hard. You get out of your depth, you will die, and the game will mock you for it. Come back to life. You will always get some little voiceover, slightly ribbing you and perhaps calling into question your ability to play the game. And I like that. I like the tongue-in-cheek element of it. One of the things that Wildstar does is a system called telegraphs. Now, you'll be familiar with this if you've played it and if you've watched any videos, but the idea is, in most games, when a monster does some ability, you will have to get out of the way of it if you can. Now, a lot of abilities, a lot of monsters, are just going to hit you irrespective. In exactly the same way, what do you do when you want to fireball a monster? You click on it, you click fireball, bang, second later the fireball hits it in the face and takes its health bar down. Wildstar's not like that. In Wildstar you have to aim, and the system of aiming is this thing called telegraphs. So when you cast a spell, it will draw on the ground a shaded area to show where it's going to hit. And if there is a monster standing in that area, when it goes off, it gets hit. And if there's not, guess what? You've missed. Get better. And the monsters do the same. The monster is going to use a special ability. Some of the ground will go red. Get the hell out of the red, right? We're all familiar with this. We're not going to mention Shade of Aran in Karazhan, the bane of many a guild, where getting out of the fire was a terrible thing to do. But generally speaking, we're really good at getting out of red stuff. Wildstar formalizes that. It just makes it a bit more obvious. And initially, you could look at that and go, oh my god, easy mode. Well, there was an add-on for that on WoW, and it got banned because it made stuff too easy. Yeah, that's true, because the game was not set up for it. But in Wildstar, that's not the case. Now, because in Wildstar they do this, they start teaching you it at level 1. And so by the time you're getting to higher levels, some of these telegraphs on the ground are getting really complicated, really hard, and they overlap and they interact with each other. And the net effect is that actually this you've got to really pay attention to this. You've got to be really good at darting to the side and dodging and jumping and teleporting and interrupting and all this kind of stuff. Otherwise, you're just going to get ripped to pieces. And the fact that it's obvious where is dangerous, if anything, just highlights how important it is not to mess this up. And it can be more precise, because on World of Warcraft, if bad stuff's going to happen roughly over here, there's two things that's normally the case. Firstly, it's normally quite consistent. It's over there every time. Secondly, because it's very fuzzy, you've got a lot of leeway. If a missile is going to hit over here, if they don't draw a little circle on the ground, which they have started doing in WoW, they've got to give you a lot of leeway, because otherwise, I was out of it, blah, blah, blah. In Wildstar, they don't. You know what's good, you know what's bad, and there's no leeway. There is no leeway. If your toenail is in there, your toenail is going to get ripped off and take your leg with it. So that's telegraphs, and it's a really good system. One of the things I really like about it as well is every ability you have is a telegraph, which means if you're a good player, don't just hit one monster at a time. You position yourself so that those 3 monsters that you're fighting are lined up. Bang, you hit 3 of them for the price of 1. This is going to make positioning incredibly important in Wildstar. Far, far more important than any game I think I've played before, any MMO certainly. And this is going to help distinguish the good players from the bad. So I like this. I like the fact that it's hard. And we haven't even talked about raiding yet. So let's talk about raiding. Raiding in Wildstar is going to be teeth-pullingly hard if you want to get to the end. So the first thing to know is 40-man raids are back. 40-man raids, the things that Blizzard used to do and gave up on in Burning Crusade. These guys have said, no, actually, they're difficult, yeah. There are issues around loot that need to be resolved, absolutely. As a guildmaster or a raid leader, they are logistically hellish. Yes, that's going to be fun. But, if you ask virtually any raider from vanilla WoW days, anybody who kind of played in vanilla and then carried on playing, you know, and gave up at some point later, what is the most epic moment you've ever had in WoW? A very high percentage of them are going to tell you about a 40-man raid, where 40 people were screaming in excitement when that boss finally went down, where there were so many people and everybody had to be on their game. Now, it's going to be interesting to see how that pans out, because 40 people is a lot of people to coordinate. And the fact is, people aren't used to that anymore. We've kind of forgotten how to do 40-man raiding. We're used to 10-mans. We're used to not having that large number of people to coordinate and play with. So as a guild, we're going to have to think really hard about this. I've already got some thoughts about how we're going to coordinate it in terms of the whole class leaders and splitting raids up into sort of separate functional groups, all this kind of thing. There's a lot of logistics that needs to go into the managing of this. But actually, I'm quite excited about it. When we did 10-man raiding in World of Warcraft in Wrath days, that was really good, and we got some really great progression done there. But you know what? It was the 25-mans that I really liked the most. 10-man raiding was always I don't want to use the word elitist, but there was always a slight perception, wasn't there? There was an A team and a B team and a C team and a blah 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 blah. You know, at one point in Wrath I was running 5 teams, but it was always kind of a bit less inclusive than the 25s. In the 25s, we threw the doors open and we said, come and play. Everybody in one big group, let's do this together as a guild. That was great. 40-mans is going to be more so. Now, it creates some logistical challenges, as I mentioned. Are we going to have 40 people who are good raiders? We don't know that. We're going to have to sort of see how that pans out. We're going to have to recruit people who don't come from Conclave back in the Warcraft days. And we've got to make sure that those people understand our ethos. What we don't want to do is water down what makes us really good, because we're looking for more people. So we've got to make sure we get the right people. But I think if we can do that, I think 40-man raiding has real potential. Now, in a year's time, you might find me sobbing on the floor as I'm trying to organise a raid, but at the moment, I'm quite excited about this. So not only are there 40-man raids, there are 20s as well, let's be clear, right? The 20-man raids are more the kind of, as I understand it, the kind of intro raids. And then if you want to do the absolute creme de la creme of content, that's where the 40s is. So there's opportunities for us to do 20 if we find that 40 is going to be a struggle. It's not as if raiding is close to us. And I think what we'll end up doing is we'll end up having, you know, maybe 1 or 2 20-man groups, and then we'll strap them together for the 40s. So, but anyway, apart from the size of it, the other thing that's really interesting about raiding is that it's going to be really difficult. I've seen a number of videos of people trying the Wildstar raids, and one thing I saw yesterday, now I forget his name, but no, I absolutely do forget his name. But basically, it was this guy who was in one of the top 5 WoW raiding guilds. One of the best players in the world, frankly. With a team, equally good people. The sort of people who would go into new content on World of Warcraft and they'd have the hard mode down within a day. And he was talking about how he was doing this raid in Wildstar, and that they had wiped 50 or 60 times before they killed this boss. And it was the first boss, right? 50 or 60 times for the very best players in the world. It's going to be hard. Now, it might get toned down a bit, and obviously, at the moment, no one really knows how to play their class properly. Everyone is learning. But I like the fact that even really good players are going in, and they're getting their asses kicked. Now, I said it was the first boss. It wasn't the first boss in the first raid, just in case anyone at this point is slowly sobbing into their keyboards. I've seen some other raids, I've seen some big dungeons, and they're looking interesting. I think we can definitely do them. But I like the fact that all the content isn't cleared within minutes of being launched, which is always what happened on WoW. There's going to be a steep curve, and every guild is going to get some way along that curve, and then probably reach the point where they go, do you know what? Ow, wow, we're out of our depth here. And I don't mind that. I don't mind the fact that we're not going to kill every boss in the game. At least initially. We might be able to later when we're more geared up, etc. and new content comes out. But no, this is good. It's going to be hard, and I approve. So, as well as PvE, there's PvP. Now, I will put my hand up and say I'm a rubbish PvPer. I'm not quite the person who's always falling off a Raffi basin, etc. But when I do PvP, if I was doing a Raffi, the thing I would most enjoy would be using some kind of knockback or mind control to make people fall off cliffs. That was kind of my thing. But PvP in Wildstar is very well represented indeed. They've got all the stuff you're used to. They've got all your arenas and your battlegrounds. Played a bit of Walatiki Temple, which is quite fun. Running around a sort of jungle area carrying gigantic heads. I was rubbish at it. I got killed a lot. Did a couple of captures, but you know, I was rubbish, as I would expect. But what do we like about Wildstar? Well, this thing about the telegraphs adds a whole new element to PvP. Again, positioning becomes incredibly important. You can do a lot more damage if you line your stuff up. They're making some innovations in terms of respawns. So, for example, there are some battlegrounds or arenas more rather, where you have a number of respawns, but as a team you get to decide who uses them as when. So are there some people who are more effective than others? Do you want to save your respawns for those? Or do you want to get everyone back into the fray as quickly as possible because things start to tilt when you're outnumbered? That's a choice. The battlegrounds look interesting. But what I really like about this is that they're bringing back World PvP. Now, World PvP was tremendously fun in World of Warcraft. The number of times I formed a part of a huge battle line between South Shore and Tarren Mill, and battles went on for hours and hours and hours and hours. They were just so much fun. You'd come and you'd go and they'd still be fighting there. You could just come in and join in if you wanted to and drop out if you didn't want to, and so on. This was really, really good. Now, it's not clear yet exactly how the PvP server stuff is going to work, and I think we need to take a decision as a guild whether we want to be on a PvP server or a PvE server, and if we want to be on a PvE server, to what degree are we interested in World PvP? You know, can we all just toggle PvP on and go and do the equivalent of Tarren Mill? Don't know, but it'll be really interesting to see that. But in addition to World PvP, they're also doing war plots. Now, war plots are the 40-man raiding of PvP. So this is 40 versus 40 PvP, but you get to build your battle fortress in advance and load it out with lasers and cannons and robots, and even dungeon bosses that you've captured. And this is going to allow people to do... It's almost a bit like Arena, but like 40 versus 40 Arena with castles is kind of one way to look at it. And so that's looking really interesting. I'm quite intrigued by that. And I think that might lure in a number of people for whom PvP is not their main interest. So PvP is looking really good as well. And actually, on the guild site, there's the War Plots video is actually up there at the moment if you've not seen it. So that's the kind of the PvP and the PvE. I've obviously talked more about PvE because that's frankly what I'm good at. But there's loads of other stuff in this game as well that is really interesting. The trade skill system is incredibly complicated. This is a good thing. There are people who love trade skills. This is what makes the game fun to them. And these people are very well represented in Wildstar. As well as that, there's houses. Housing in Wildstar looks tremendous. There is so much customization. You have a plot of land as well as a kind of a house, and your house is on your plot of land. You can customize your house however you want. You get drops which allow you to do rare and interesting things to it. But then on the plot of land itself outside, you can change the weather, you can build farms, you can have dungeon entrances, you can have stuff that generates ore for you, mining materials. There seems to be so much flexibility. And if I recall, you can have 6 different things in your plot of land. And at launch, there's something like 200 different things that you can choose from. Now, I say choose, I suspect you probably have to go and find them or get them as dungeon drops or commit quests or whatever. But 6 you can take and 200 from choose from. And then you have neighbours, you have people on plots of land near yours. Well, they can be your guildies and friends, and then you can pop over to their one if you want to use the quick teleport point to this dungeon. It's really well thought out system. It's hard to say in practice how well it's going to work, but actually the design that's gone into it is really impressive. I mean, many people will know I have somewhat of a game design background because of Elephant Run, and I spent a lot of time thinking about systems and how to make things engaging for players. And I felt with World of Warcraft there was a lot of good stuff at the beginning. I feel they've kind of taken it out as time has gone on, right? You know, they never did houses, but they did do pet battles. I mean, really, if I want Pokemon, I'll go and turn on kids' TV. Sorry, Pokemon lovers. But houses, WoW still haven't done it properly 10 years later, and Wildstar are doing a tremendous job just straight off the bat. So that's really good. By the way, if you pre-order, you get a rocket house for free. So that might be a reason to do that if you haven't already. So yeah, there's houses. I mean, there's things about playing as a guild. Your guild currency that you can use to do cool things for the guild is gained by playing together. So there's actually effectively a currency for partying together with your guildmates. Now, that's a really good thing, right? Lots of us love partying together anyway because we're guildies, but it's nice to see them recognise that this is a really important social thing, it's a community thing, and to actually reward that in a way that then feeds back into benefiting the community via the different guild perks. So that's looking interesting as well. Now, I could talk for hours and hours and hours about all the different things about Wildstar that's appealing to me. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to wind that sort of that bit up now. But suffice to say, there's just a lot here that looks to me, as someone with some games design experience, as someone who's looked at how to design economic models in games, how to create community-focused content, how to reinforce the kind of the social bonds that's so interesting in an MMO. I'm very impressed by what they're doing, and I hope that they actually deliver on this, and that all these plans, which I think are very well put together, are actually executed well. So that's why we're excited in a nutshell, or a abridged version of why we're excited about Wildstar. So let's just talk very quickly about what our plans are at launch. So the intention is that the guild is going to have the same basic feel as it did in World of Warcraft, which for those of you who come from WoW, you'll understand, but for those of you who don't, just to reiterate, what this means is that we are fundamentally planning to be a laid-back, fairly casual-minded guild. However, we're going to be a laid-back, fairly casual-minded guild that has a lot of people in it who are excellent players. This means that we are able to do something quite unusual. It means that we are able to do progression raiding without having that progression raiding mentality. You know, we're not going to ask people to come to training nights. We're not going to raid 7 nights a week. We're not going to kick people from the guild if they can't make a raid for a couple of weeks because they've got a project at work or a thing to write at university or anything like that. We're flexible about this stuff. If you can't make it, that's okay. Just let us know and we'll work around it. Right? Part of the job of the officers is to make sure that the guild is structured in such a way that we've got that cover. So that's fine. So we're going to be laid back and casual about this. And if you want to raid, that's great. And if you want to do dungeons, that's great. And all we ask from you in return is that you are open-minded about doing your best to be good. So we will help anybody who needs a leg up. If you don't know how to get the best out of your character, we will make sure that there are people available who do and can talk to you about it. Informally, off the record, just have a chat about it. Let's see how you're playing, okay? If you tweak, did you know if you change that to this, that does a bit more damage, or this thing over here, it's not obvious, but actually the effect on how well you're going to heal is going to be a bit improved. Just stuff like that. We kind of did that informally in World of Warcraft, but if we're looking for sort of 40-man size, we're probably going to have to tighten that up and make sure we've got sort of formal class/role leaders. So that's one thing. But we are going to plan to do progression raiding, and we are later, I think, probably going to make some effort to chase, perhaps not sort of server firsts, but certainly looking to be sort of quite up the charts in terms of how quickly we're taking stuff down. But initially, that is not the plan. We are not planning to chase for server firsts at launch. At launch, our intention is that we take it nice and easy, let everyone settle into the game, have a good feel for how they want to play it, you know, maybe change their class if they decide that they've made the wrong pick. And later, those who are interested in doing so, then we can have a new conversation about at what point do we shift gear. So don't worry, if you're a progression raider, we are absolutely intending to go for that. However, we're not planning to do that to start with. We're going to sort of gear up and change gears up slowly. And so that way I don't want anyone to feel under any pressure to put in any more time or feel under any sort of particular stress that they need to go and do anything that they wouldn't be doing otherwise. Take your time, have fun, it's a great game, and at some point in the future we will reach out and say, okay, who wants to go up the gear? And those who do can, and those who don't, do you know what? Doesn't matter. Everybody in the guild has exactly the same sort of level of privilege and respect and thing as everybody else. In World of Warcraft, yes, we had a Raiders group, but you know what? The Raiders group had no more sort of clout or permissions to anything or anything like that than those people who what they wanted to do was spend their days fishing. So that's pretty much where we're planning to go with that. We'll find out who wants to do the progression, and then we'll put that together and we'll see what that looks like. And then people are interested in joining in that group, then we can run dungeons. And people who aren't sure if that's what they fancy, that's okay. Let's see, come along, try it out, right? If you find it fun, then we'll help you get better at it. And if you don't, that's not a problem. You don't need to. But certainly for me, some of the best moments in the game were spent with 24 other guildmates, standing in a big cavern somewhere, facing off against a bunch of bosses and comparing notes on tactics on how we're going to do this. And then this huge army moving against this array of monsters in some complicated dance, and at the end of it, us standing over the bodies of the monsters going, hell yeah. You can look through the guild site for those who aren't WoW players. There's plenty of videos and screenshots of us taking down bosses and all lining up proudly over the corpse of some poor squishy monster. And the other thing that we're going to need to talk about, as I mentioned before, is PvP and how formally do we want to do it. In World of Warcraft, we did PvP, but it was informal. In Wildstar, do we want to do war plots? Are we going to have 40-odd people who are interested enough? Not sure, but that's certainly a topic for the future as well. Right, so I have talked easily far enough, but I just wanted to cover off why this is looking so interesting to us, what we want to be doing, and why I think that Conclave of Darkshire has got a really solid position in Wildstar. We can do a lot here, and I hope that those people who haven't been a part of Conclave in the past are going to really enjoy their time with us. Our intention is always to make it as fun as possible for the most number of people we can, and we are never going to sacrifice groups of our community in the interest of other groups of our community. So, as I said, we'll never be that guild that says if you can't raid, you're not as good as those who can. That's just not us. So that's it. That's Conclave. I mean, one quick question I should chuck in at the end is Conclave of Darkshire is a bit of a WoW name. Do we want to keep Conclave? Do we want to change our name? I'm happy to have a conversation about that. But the whole COD, before that, Rangers and Witches of Darkshire, has such history. I mean, this dates back to 2005. Despite the WoW element of it, I'm kind of drawn to staying as we are. But as always, happy to have a conversation if anyone else feels particularly strongly about it. But anyway, that's it. I will talk to you guys again soon. I will see you on Mumble once it launches. And if anyone is on over the beta weekend, I will also catch you there.